what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa. And across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery?
I have a constituent. She went to get a test at a hospital. They stuck the swab so far up in her nose, they punctured the membrane that holds in the fluid that surrounds your brain. Required surgery to fix. It leaked into her throat, and she went to sue the people that stuck that swab up in her nose. They said, nope, PrEP Act. So it doesn't just cover vaccines.
Hey, what's up, folks? I know it's rare, but there were gems on CNN and Fox News the other day. Let's start with this lady absolutely schooling Don Lemon on reparations.
And then you have those who are asking for reparations for colonialism, and they're wondering, $100 billion, $24 billion here and there, $500 million there. Some people want to be paid back, and members of the public are wondering, why are we suffering when you have all of this vast wealth? Those are legitimate concerns.
Okay. So Don Lemon laid out the question like that. Let's see how she responds.
Well, I think you're right about reparations in terms of if people want it, though, what they need to do is you always need to go back to the beginning of a supply chain. Where was the beginning of the supply chain? That was in Africa. And across the entire world, when the slavery was taking place, which was the first nation in the world that abolished slavery?
Oh, okay. She's going there. I bet you Don Lemon did not expect this answer. Let's keep listening.
The first nation in the world to abolish it. It was started by William Wilberforce, was the British. In Great Britain, they abolished slavery. 2,000 naval men died on the high seas trying to stop slavery. Why? Because the African kings were rounding up their own people.
I can't wait to see how Don Lemon responds to this. He definitely was not trying to hear that.
They had them on cages waiting in the beaches. No one was running into Africa to get them. And I think you're totally right. If reparations need to be paid, we need to go right back to the beginning of that supply chain and say, who was rounding up their own people and having them handcuffed in cages? Absolutely. That's where they should start.
If they do decide to greenlight reparations, maybe Don Lemon can donate his hipster glasses. I bet those aren't cheap.
And maybe, I don't know, the descendants of those families where they died in the high seas trying to stop the slavery, that those families should receive something too, I think, at the same time.
It's an interesting discussion, Hillary. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll continue to discuss in the future. So remember the impact of the supply chain.
Oh my gosh. He literally had nothing to rebut that with. It's just like, it's an interesting discussion. I mean, I guess we'll talk about it later. And during my live stream today, I'm not only going to play this clip of Thomas Massie absolutely crushing it on Tucker Carlson, but I also want to talk about this transgender teacher that's allegedly wearing some prosthetic giant honkers that has created controversy. I thought this was like a joke or a meme, but I guess in clown world, this is really happening, so why not talk about it? Appreciate you guys. We're going live now.
The Dream Rare Podcast, welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. It's the Dream Rare Podcast, welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's episode. Before we get into this, Thomas Massie, my favorite congressman on Tucker Carlson, just crushing. You know, I do have to tell you, this story is coming soon. If you're just listening on audio, there's, I guess, a transgender teacher with some big honkers, some augas. I mean, they're not real. They're like prosthetic, I guess. I saw this picture. I cut off them because I didn't want people to look at protruding nipples on my live stream. But I just saw all these memes and I'm like, this got to be a joke, right? It's just got to be like a thing or a meme, a right-wing meme. And no, I guess there really is a transgender teacher who's wearing some prosthetic augas. And, you know, left-wingers are defending it. It's the weirdest, most bizarre thing I've ever seen. I thought it was just a joke, but apparently they really are backing this. So we got to talk about that. Here we go. Let's play these clips of Thomas Massie because it's just fantastic, I would say, exposure on television. Let's watch.
He's on the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. And that may sound like low praise, a smart and honest member of Congress. There just aren't that many, so we're always glad to see you. What do you make of Biden's interview on COVID?
Look, we've been living under a form of martial law for about 2.5 years now. All of the powers that the president has claimed to himself that emanated or were predicated on the COVID virus, those need to go away today. When I saw him say that yesterday, I suggested that the public health emergency should go away, that all the governors that have these executive powers, that should go away. The vaccine mandates need to go away if the pandemic is over.
So that's Thomas Massie. I'm going to play the whole clip. He went on Tucker to say, if Biden says the pandemic is over, interesting. When are all these emergency powers going to go away? His interview just keeps getting better and better and better. So let's take a watch at the second segment.
And finally, one of the most onerous things, the PrEP Act. This basically is what I call medical malpractice martial law. It supersedes all state law, all federal law, and it says unless somebody with intent kills you, with one of their PCR tests or with a treatment or with a vaccine, you have no legal recourse unless they meant to hurt you. It's ridiculous, and this needs to go away. We've even seen hundreds of billions of dollars of student loans. Joe Biden claims he has the power to just reassign that debt to taxpayers because of COVID.
So Thomas Massie's talking about the PrEP Act. He's going to talk about it further. It's really important for people to understand. We've talked about it here a bunch, but the PrEP Act is something I believe that was passed under George Bush Jr.'s administration. But anyway, it's this executive sort of emergency power that they have under an emergency. Now a lot of people have no liability, like if they're testing you, vaccination, they have this special emergency liability shield where they say, well, the PrEP Act protects us and shields us from liability. So Thomas Massie explains it further. It goes even far beyond vaccines, according to Massie.
Well, if he thinks the pandemic's over, then take away all those powers, repeal them, end it now.
So just to be totally clear on what you just said about current federal law, if my child was required to get a COVID shot in order to go to college, as almost all college students were, and then develops severe heart problems, as so many young people have from these vaccines, we can't sue the college for requiring that?
No, you can't sue the college or the person that gave you the shot or the pharmaceutical company that made the shot.
Whoa, Tucker Carlson, here, let me fact check you for these losers on Facebook and YouTube. Fact check, they're safe and effective. I mean, of course, some people will get side effects, and of course, the vaccine manufacturers have no liability for that if it does happen, whether it's rare or happens to one person, 100, 1,000, 10,000, more or less. Of course, they have no liability for it, but for some reason, big pharma has co-opted big tech where they try to cover up anybody who even talks about it. VAERS reporting was created by the government. The government created VAERS, not Alex Jones, not InfoWars. It was created by, I believe, our federal government to database vaccine injuries. But now that you have this new COVID shot, let's just ignore VAERS completely and act like it's a giant conspiracy theory. A conspiracy theory created by the government to log injuries. Now, you're not even going to say, well, let's investigate to see which ones are real or not. You're just saying, oh, let's just act like it doesn't even exist. Fascinating. Let's get back to the interview.
In fact, I have a constituent. She went to get a test at a hospital. They stuck the swab so far up in her nose, they punctured the membrane that holds in the fluid that surrounds your brain. Required surgery to fix. It leaked into her throat, and she went to sue the people that stuck that swab up in her nose. They said, nope, PrEP Act. So it doesn't just cover vaccines, it covers everything. It covers the treatments, the vaccines, and the tests, and anybody giving them. I have a mom who took her 2 kids to get a flu shot last year. They accidentally gave them the adult dose of the COVID vaccine. Again, they say, oh, PrEP Act, you can't sue us. Shot.
Yeah, it's just the PrEP Act. I mean, oh well, we just made a mistake. I mean, it's rare, so who cares about you, right? You can't really sue over that. I've never let them, and I never will let them, shove that thing up my nose. Never will happen. I'm not saying they break everybody's membrane, but, oh, let's just test you once a week. Let's shove something up your nose once a week and treat you like a factory farm pig because we now think the same person you were last year is, too big of a risk factor in order to let us get in. we really should have stood our ground with mass testing, not just vaccine mandates, because, so many people are like, it's fine, I'll just get tested every week, I'll just get tested every day. Even a lot of these athletes, I want to play in the NFL, I'm unvaccinated, I'll get tested every day. I mean, have a little respect for yourself. I know everybody needs to make some sort of sacrifice, but this is my personal policy. It's like, I'm not a slave, I'm not an animal, I'm not a factory farm pig on a conveyor belt. Like, you treating me like I'm a piece of garbage or I'm toxic, I don't appreciate it. And if that's your policy, then I don't want to be wherever you are. I don't want to live in a world where that's how I'm treated. So I wish more people would stand up against it, because although I'm sure a lot of people didn't get injured from it, like Thomas Massie said, some people have, and those people at the end of the day, they force you to do all this stuff, force you to get a vaccine, force you to get a test, force you to wear a mask, force you to do this, force you to do that. And God forbid something does happen as a result, then they throw their hands up and say, well, technically, legally, you decided to do it. Even I have a lawyer that has been very successful suing, vaccine mandate businesses and stuff. And I asked them a question. I said, if, they force you to get a vaccine and something happens or you lose your job, can you help that person? And my lawyer friend said, I can only really help people legally who stood up for themselves. So if you're a nurse and they fired you because of a vaccine mandate, he's able to help people like that. He's helped hundreds of people win court cases who stood up for themselves and said no. But once you say yes, even if you're coerced or co-opted or they force you, at the end of the day, it's technically your decision, because you can also opt out and get fired and make them remove you. And if you do that, you have a lot more legal recourse than you do if you cave. Because the second you cave, as much as they'll act like they made you do it, when it comes to the legalities of it, they'll sit back and say, well, you did it. You could have got fired. You could have tested me further. You could have held your ground. And what I've noticed in my personal circle, people that held their ground are fine. A lot of times they're like, do this, do this, do this. They press you 5 times. They make you feel like garbage. If you don't get a vaccine, you're done. And the second you don't do it, I know multiple people, 2 weeks later, they said, oh, actually, things have changed, because it's all, it's not the same rules it was last year in December. So all these stupid, pathetic bosses who are just shells of a human being, no soul, just doing whatever they can for the money, they're just following corporate orders. It goes up the ladder. You got a bunch of little zombies, I'll do what I have to do to keep my position. Sure, whatever. So they tell them to do that. They tell them to do that. It gets down the chain to you. The next thing you know, the same boss that told you to get the vaccine that you couldn't work there, now the rules are different. So now he's flopping like a fish. So I find that, while you're free to do what you want medically, people that stood up for themselves, I've heard massive success stories, people who won lawsuits, people who got their job, got a raise because now that job, everybody's hiring and they don't have enough workers. So standing your ground, I know a lot of people who won big that way. And, I've talked to parents who said, my son or, my daughter, got forced to take the shot to play baseball or to do this. And, they ask me, is there anything I can do? I'm not a lawyer. I hope you can win some sort of case if you have one. But from my knowledge and people that I know that are winning lawsuits, they tell me that if your kid gets a shot and he was forced, there's not much you can do. But if your kid would have stood up for themselves and said no, and then lost something or got fired or, got kicked out of school, whatever it was, not able to play a sport, it's a lot easier to win a case doing that. So, that's just what I've heard. All right, let's listen to the end of Thomas Massie's little segment real quick, and then we'll move on.
By the way, you gave me credit for being honest. I'm going to have I'm going to commit candor here on TV, which is a crime in D.C. This actually started under President Trump. The PrEP Act was a declaration by his Health and Human Services Secretary.
Well, it's awful. And people should have a legal recourse when they're injured, I think. I mean, call me liberal. I think they should. I mean, what?
Well, Biden has used fear. They've amended the PrEP Act for COVID 12 times now. And they need to end it. Biden has declared the pandemic is over. So we need to take away all of the powers that he's claimed to himself. We don't live in a dictatorship. We live in a republic.
You gotta love Thomas Massie. He's calling out the Democrats, he's calling out the mandates, but he also admitted the truth, which is this all started under Trump. The emergency was declared under Trump's HHS secretary, and Trump, as I've said many times, his HHS secretary, who he chose, He didn't drain the swamp. He didn't fight Big Pharma. Trump cucked and sold us out to Big Pharma. He put a pharmacy lobbyist / executive from Eli Lilly, Alex Azar, at the head of Human Health Services. He also took Bill Gates' 2018 plans of universal flu vaccine, put it into an executive order in 2019. He rolled out the red carpet for Bill Gates. He rolled out the red carpet for Moderna, Johnson & Johnson. Donald Trump is the father of the vaccine. So, it cracks me up when some of my influencer friends, and God bless you guys, I'm not trying to be a dick, but I see so many right-wing influencers say, oh, it's the Fauci shot. I'm so against the Fauci shot. Listen to Daddy Trump. Okay, you love Trump so much, but you love to ignore him when he asks for credit. He wants credit for the FDA, for the vaccine. He wants you to know that he rushed the FDA. He rushed Fauci. Trump wants to be the father of the vaccine. So how dare you right-wing influencers just suck off Daddy Trump's dirt off his shoes, but you won't give him credit for the thing he wants credit for. It's like, it's the Fauci shot. No, it's the Trumpy Pumpy. It's the Fauci ouchie and the Trumpy Pumpy. Give Daddy Trump credit. He wants it so bad. You listen to him all the time, but you won't listen to him on that. So in general, I love how Thomas Massie explains that it started under Donald Trump and didn't just start randomly under Biden, although they've extended it. So that was excellent. Thank you so much, Thomas Massie. He's one of the only congressmen with a soul. Sometimes you'll find all of Congress voting one way. When it comes to like Israeli speech laws, all these Republicans will say, oh, it's anti-Semitic to disagree with the speech law. No, it's not. That would be like me saying you're racist if you don't believe in a BLM speech law. Oh, you're racist. You hate black people. If you don't want to pass a black bill that stops you from questioning Africa. That's what Republicans do. Most of them are co-opted from Israeli donors, and they say, oh, you're an anti-Semite like Louis Farrakhan if you disagree with my speech law. You'll find certain things. Everybody in Congress is voting for it, and Thomas Massie's the only person voting against it. And they try to call him an anti-Semite. He's like, I don't hate Jews and I don't hate Israel. I believe in the First Amendment. He's a real constitutional conservative, and that's why he stands alone. Sometimes literally, I'm not joking, every person in Congress, every single one of them will vote for something evil and unconstitutional. And he's standing alone. Even your favorite ones that seem so cool, they'll vote for it too. They want the money, they want the goodies, they want the flights, they want they want to be in the in crowd, so they have power. God bless you, Thomas Massie, for standing up for our First Amendment, standing up for the Constitution, calling out Democrats and also calling out Republicans when they just act like controlled opposition. They tell you everything they want to hear. They fill up the swamp. They turn into big pharma shills, and nobody wants to talk about it because everybody just wants to play team sports. Thank you, Massie. That was epic. Let's move to this. If you're just listening on audio, I cut off because she's got protruding nipples. This is some sort of auga. They're not natural, and they're not even like, they're not silicone. I think they're just like prosthetics that she or he or whoever they want to identify are just slapping on themselves. So this is the story. I'm just going to read it real quick, and I'm just fascinated that left-wingers all over Twitter are loving this, and they're like, what's the big deal? So let's read the story. Halton District School Board Twitter feed is blowing up as photos of a transgender high school tech teacher wearing large prosthetic breasts in the classroom went viral. What was originally, this is a Toronto Star, by the way, newspaper out of Canada, commie Canada, no, but what was originally thought to be a hoax after the Oaksville Trafalgar high school teacher came to school in shorts and a tight-fitting shirt over the prosthetic has since been confirmed by the board. HDSB is committed to establishing and maintaining a safe, caring, inclusive, and equitable and welcoming learning and working environment for all students and staff, reads the HDSB official statement. We strive to promote a positive learning environment in schools consistent with the values of our school board and ensure that a safe and inclusive learning and working environment for all students, staff, and community, regardless of their race, age, ability, sex, gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, ethnicity, religion, cultural observance, socioeconomic circumstances, and or body type / size. HDSB recognizes the rights of students, staff, parents, guardians, and community members to equitable treatment without discrimination based upon gender identity and gender expression. So here's the new transgender, controversy going on now. And I cut them off because I didn't want them to be flagged. But like, honestly, her bazungas, they sag down to here. She / he / whatever they want to be today. they're wearing these prosthetic breasts that are bigger than any breasts I've ever seen in my life ever. Like they're like size ZZ top. I don't even know. They're massive, like just unnecessarily protruding, large. They got the nipples popping out, like just like the size of a freaking basketball. And apparently this transgender now it's their right to walk around with big basketball titties at a high school. And here's the craziest part. Here's some left-wingers. I marvel at left-wingers defending this the same way a bird watcher marvels in awe at like a rare finch. You know what I'm saying? Like I watch these left-wingers like a bird watcher. I'm just fascinated by them. I'm like, I got my binocs out and I'm like, are you real? It's like I just saw a California condor, one of the rarest birds in the world. I'm like, are you a real thing? Like this is the left wing now? Here's Peter Bulgason. I don't even know if he's left wing, but whatever. He said, most people have strong moral impulses about whether this individual should be allowed to teach their children in a public school. But very few can construct a good argument why or why not. It's more difficult than you think. Try it. This guy seems like Sam Harris-esque. He's like, to be or not to be? That is the question of bazungas. It's like, all right, calm down, Socrates. But, it's not a hard moral argument at all. It's like they're not natural. It's not even like they got a boob job. I'm not saying that's good, but it's like they're just wearing these massive, ridiculous, protruding nipples to a high school, and that's fine with you. This is the hill that you guys want to die on now. It's just like such a joke. It's such a stupid world we live in, where it's like, this is the new thing. Well, I'm transgender, whatever. I'm this, whatever. I'm a flower today. Okay, sure. I'm a bumblebee, whatever. Yeah, sure, fine. Just teach the kids. I'm wearing massive bazungas, prosthetically with protruding nipples to a high school. It's like, okay, maybe a little too far. Maybe a little creepy, like a little fetishy, a little gross. Maybe not the right place at a high school, for sure. But apparently only conservatives know that now. That's the world we live in. It's like, if you want to know how insane, it's not like Richard Nixon versus Kennedy. Those days are over, okay? You have left-wingers just spiraling to make excuses for anything and everything, They have no moral code anymore. Anytime you catch them on a lie, they just double down or act like they never did it. They have rules for themselves, but not for you. It's not Kennedy versus Nixon anymore. It's like, well, I mean, I'm a liberal, so I don't understand why a transgender teacher can't wear size Z prosthetic titties to school. It's like, you can't figure that out? It's pretty sad. I don't even want to talk about it much anymore, but let me know what you guys think about. And someone said Long Tong Sohn said it's utterly ridiculous. It's with the UDDER. It's utterly ridiculous. That's funny. Yeah, there's not much I'm really got to say at that. I'm just fascinated by left-wingers. Like, I swear, I watch them like a bird watcher. Like, it's like, oh, he's on the pitch. Oh, here comes a rare condor. And I'm just like, are these people really defending this? Like, and I'm trying to make sense of it. Like, are they dishonest? Are they mentally ill? Are they lying? Are they creeps? Like, what is it? Because I have a pretty high tolerance for ideas, and I'm not a closed-minded person. I'm pretty thoughtful, pretty compassionate. I just can't wrap my head around what they're thinking. Like, is it an act? Are they joking? You know what I'm saying? Am I being trolled? Like, they really don't believe that? Because it's not like a political issue. It's not like, should we, tax people 7% or 9%? It's like you have someone wearing prosthetic bazungas at a school. You don't get that? And as I'm looking for good comments to put on the screen, here's something also I find weird and just annoying. Like, I'm annoyed with Republicans too. I heard my friend said, who watches Crowder, that Steven Crowder, him and his staff wore a bunch of like fake boobs or something, to like joke about it, where it's like, it's funny once or twice, but at a certain point, I just consider Steven Crowder a cross-dressing tranny comedian. And I'm not trying to be rude or disrespectful. He's a funny transgender, but I don't even consider Steven Crowder a man anymore. Like, he's like a tranny. It's like, if you make a tranny joke once or twice, But Steven Crowder's just dying for an excuse to throw on fake breasts or a dress or a tutu, or, you know, it's like he cross-dresses more than like actual cross-dressers that I've met, you know? So it's like, at a certain point, it's like, oh, we're going to own the left for cross-dressing by constantly cross-dressing in front of your 19-year-old kids. It's like, at a certain point, Steven Crowder is just a tranny. You know, it's like, how many times has he dressed up? Like 20? You know, every excuse he can get, he's throwing on fake titties and like a woman's outfit. So it's like, okay, yeah, oh, the left is wearing fake boobs in front of your sons. So what I'm going to do, Steven Crowder, is put on fake boobs in front of your sons also. But just a joke. It's like, bro, the joke's done. You've already done it 50 times. But I don't know. At what point, you know what I'm saying? At what point do you just become what you're doing? Like, I'm all for acting and like dressing up to do a skit, but at a certain point, you are just a tranny. I don't know, in my opinion. And then he tweeted today that Hitler was a leftist. He wasn't. I mean, you could read his book just like you could read Communist Manifesto, do your own research. I'm not saying that you have to like it, but it's like, if you want to know real history, read the books, read the text, watch documentaries on the topic, watch both sides of it, and then you'll find the truth that way. I'm not saying that you like challenge yourself. Even things that I challenge myself just to see what people that I disagree with are saying. This way I have a better understanding of the argument. So it's like, the dude's dressing like a woman and telling everyone Hitler was a leftist. Like, at what point is it useless to even have a right wing if they're cross-dressing and distorting history? Like, say what you want, but he wasn't a leftist. And I understand he was doing National Socialism, and socialism can be, you know, is left-wing, but like, it's not, that's not real history. And I know because I've actually read and researched and done, like, the more I learn, the more I'm like, dude, these Republicans that I used to look up to, they don't know anything. Like, they used to tell me that communism was this naive, foolish thing. Like, I've heard this hundreds of times in right-wing blogs before I read the Communist Manifesto. They're like, you know, the communists, it makes sense in theory, but it doesn't work in reality. Like, they had me thinking it's this naive, foolish, utopian society that they plan and it never works. That's not what the Communist Manifesto is at all. Most right-wingers, they just talk like parrots and they don't actually read and research. Once I read it, I'm like, this is not a naive utopian society. It's a power grab. They want no private property. It's not utopian. That's hell. They want control over media, transportation, education, transport, factories. Like, it's not a naive utopian system. It's one guy who figured out how to dupe people and try to gain control of the whole world. That's why, you know, if you look at World Economic Forum and a lot of these Democrats, they think the same way that Karl Marx does. It's not naive. They're not making a mistake. They're duping people to take total control. And I dislike communism just as much as most right-wingers, but the point I'm getting to is their explanation of it was so stupid. Once I read the book, I'm like, wow, all these people I thought were so smart are idiots. It's like they just talk. So in my opinion, that's like saying Hitler was a leftist. I'm not going to say, oh, Hitler was a conservative Republican. No, he wasn't. But to call him a leftist is just historically inaccurate, and it's not true. So it's like, I don't know, either you want to learn and figure out what really happened and or you just want to say stupid things like Ron DeSantis is a fascist, Hitler was a leftist, you know, communism is a utopian idea that never works, and, you know, I'm going to fight the drag queen storytime hour on the left by dressing in drag 50 times on my YouTube channel in front of your boys. Like, that's how I'm going to fight the left-wing dragging in front of your kids, is I'm going to do drag. But it's funny when it's like, I'm all for a parody, but at a certain point, it's like you're kind of just becoming that, you know? It's like, I don't know. What do you guys think? That's my take. Someone said, is JP cross-dressing? Who is prettier, JP or Steven? I mean, listen, I like JP Sears. I think he's funny. I think there's a time and a place to make a joke. I'm not above doing it. I'm not like, you know, I'm not saying you can't be a woman in a skit. I just think, I don't know. I feel like I've seen Crowder dress as a woman more than I've seen him dress as a man, but maybe I don't watch enough. I don't know. It's up to you. I'm not acting like I'm holier than thou. I've like role played in skits and stuff too, but I'm just like, I don't know. Oh, let's wear fake tits on my show. It's like, I don't know. You're just dying to wear fake tits. I get it, dude. You're just waiting for the excuse to do it, but whatever. Someone said, I get what you're saying. Keep it as a joke. Don't break it down like LeBron James. I'm telling you, this is my opinion. This is not, you know, what I'm saying about dressing and drag. It's my perspective. It's like, you know, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying, at what point does the joke just become that's who you are? I don't know. So, someone said you're right. The art absorbs them. I mean, if it's like, hey, it's a skit. This is, how we're doing a skit. But it's like, oh, look, this tranny is dressed up in with big boobs on, so I'm gonna wear boobs too. Haha. It's like, I don't know. It's like you've made that joke a lot. It's just like, oh, we have an excuse to wear boobs today. Okay, let's do it. I'm like, dude, if you do it a few times, it's fine. But after the 50th time, it's like, okay, I don't know. Someone said this is a 5-minute anti-Crowder rant. It's not even anti-Crowder. I'm just making a joke about it. But if you want to perceive it that way, it's fine. I'm just tired of like all the theatrics, all the rage. But when it comes to like historical accuracy, there isn't really any. So it's not anti. I'm just saying as a consumer of information, it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to get to the truth. I've learned more in the last couple of years watching alternative documentaries, rereading history, challenging myself, reading the books. I like to get to the source. Okay, he wrote that book. I'm going to read that book. That's the book that Karl Marx wrote. I'm going to read that book. I don't like Karl Marx, but if I want to know what communism is and all these people have been copying it for hundreds of years, why wouldn't I read the actual book? And what I'm trying to say is once I read the book, I realized that most right-wingers have no idea what they're talking about. They don't read. They don't see for themselves. It's like, it's like, okay, that's what you think. Let me see for myself. Let me read. Let me watch somebody who says the opposite. And what you realize is, a lot of people are just kind of going through the motions, which is fine. But I'm always trying to get to the root of stuff. I'm not hating on them. I'm just like, someone said you didn't watch the show clearly. What got your panties in the bunch? I thought you were a pacifist. Someone said Alex Stein is dressed as a woman more. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Like I'm not being aggressive towards them. I'm just maintaining my joke / perspective. Someone said you called him a tranny. I'm just saying at a certain point, I'm not acting like you can't dress up as a woman if you want to for some skits, but it's just like at a certain point, I don't know. If you're fighting the left by wearing, they're wearing fake boobs, so you're going to wear fake boobs on a show that kids watch, I'm just trying to make the philosophical argument, at what point do you become that person? Like, if I'm fighting all these people that are in front of your kids dressed like that, and then I got 15 and 19-year-olds watching my show, and I keep dressing up like a woman all the time, and I do it 50 times. At what point are you exactly what you're hating? I'm just trying to provide the philosophical argument. I personally think, no offense, whether it's Alex or Crowder, if you're making a joke once in a while, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm friends with Alex. I like him, but I do believe at a certain point, if you have a younger audience and you're dressed as a woman all the time, you are actually doing what the left is, which is presenting yourself as a woman and showing off, like with titties or something to kids. Like you're just doing that same thing. There's nuance to be had here. People could disagree. You could say that I'm wrong and it's funny, but it's like, do younger guys not watch Steven Crowder? So when he wears fake boobs, I guess, that's different. I don't know. I get it. I'm not trying to act holier than thou. I'm just asking the question. It's like, at what point are we just like a watered down version of the left? It's like the left passes speech laws, but the right also passes speech laws, but for Israel. But when we do it, we're fighting the anti-Semites. But when the left does it for racism, they're the real racists. When we talk about Black Democrats, they call us a racist, but when they talk about our Republicans, we call them racist because they don't like Tim Scott. It's like, I don't know. I'm just kind of so bored of like most Republicans. I feel like, I don't know. I'm just trying to challenge people a little bit. At what point are you just the left? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's totally normal for Republicans to dress up as women in front of like younger guys or something because they're fighting the left. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing the point. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm 100% right. I'm just wondering, like, at what point does it just become what you don't like? I don't know. I'm not quite sure. Someone said Chappelle wore a dress in the movie Men in Tights. I get the comedic aspect of it. I'm not a square. I get that it's funny for men to dress up as women sometimes. I get that it's comedy, and I get that there is nuance and humor. You're allowed to really do not whatever you want, but pretty much whatever you want. I don't have to like it. It's not like I'm the only listener. He's got a huge audience. People like it. I'm not the target audience for it anyway. So I'm not trying to hate on him and say that no one should like it or I'm completely right. I'm just kind of trying to walk through on a live stream, like, when do you just kind of become what you think you don't like? Like, why, and maybe you can explain it to me, because if you're dressing up as a woman for a few skits, okay, that makes sense. But if you're constantly using everything as an excuse to dress as a woman all the time and do the protruding nipple thing and stuff that people don't like in schools, at what point are you doing exactly what the left's doing? Presenting yourself as a woman with protruding nipples to younger guys. I don't know. Oh, you're saying Chappelle's full of it for saying he never did. Yeah, if he lied about that, that's on him. Someone said context plus discernment. Yeah, I don't know. It's a question that I don't have the answer to. I guess I was just kind of joking about it, but I'm sorry if it offended people. To be honest, I don't really care though, because I'm uninterested with what a lot of Republicans are doing. I find them, no offense, to just be like placekeepers at this point. They're not doing enough to actually make a difference. They constantly get outraged about stuff they have no idea. They don't question people like Donald Trump when he becomes a vaccine salesman. They dress up in drag, yet they're mad at people who dress up in drag. I'm not acting like, everyone has to do what I do, but at a certain point, I'm just bored. Not just bored with other right-wingers, and it's not even like a competitive thing. It's just, I feel like they're just wasting everyone's time. And also, when push comes to shove for actual stances to be made and actual knowledge to be shared, they don't know that much. They don't know that much about communism. They misrepresent Hitler. I'm not saying that you have to say he's a right-wing Republican, but it's just not historically true. It's like even fascism, fascism is not communism. They're two different ideologies. They're both very authoritarian, but fascism tends to be right-wing because they have a different plan than the left-wing communism. So I'm not saying that you can't say, oh, well, that's fascism, that's communism. It's on you to really determine. But when you say, oh, that's a left-wing idea, it's not really. But it's also not right-wing when it comes to like, oh, that's libertarian and they believe in. No, it's like authoritarianism, but like what they would consider moral authoritarianism to fling back against the left-wing authoritarianism. So I'm not saying that I have to be the be-all, end-all, but the more I read, the more I learn. What I'm saying is the more I realize nobody knows what they're talking about. You're the real racist. Hitler was a leftist. No, Ron DeSantis is a fascist. Oh, communism's utopian. It's like everybody's just talking, and the more I read, the less they make sense. So that's all I'm saying. I guess, maybe I was somewhat of a dick, but overall, I'm tired of these just mediocre Republicans just saying a bunch of ha ha ha, but they never actually know what they're talking about. So it's like, what's the point? I don't know. But that's why there's other entertainment for other people. Everybody likes something different. I seem like a hater sometimes because I have high standards, and I guess now that I've been around for a while and I've learned more, I'm just like, okay, at what point are these people just placeholders? I'm here to just ha ha ha, but we're not actually going to get anything done. Whatever. Someone said that was Hillary that got through, not Bush Jr. No, the PrEP Act was Bush Jr., not Hillary. But, I mean, maybe she had some part in the rolling out of it. Let's see. We need to create a new party. I don't know. I mean, I think the Republican Party could change, but I don't know. You could try to create a new party, but it's very difficult. And if you're only getting 3% of the vote, it doesn't matter. I'm going to say this about libertarianism, okay? I like Dave Smith. I like the Mises Caucus. I like all those people. They seem to like me for the most part. I don't dislike libertarians at all. But here's me as a competitive person, right? If I play a basketball game and I tell you I'm going to win and we play to 21 and I lose 21-1, it doesn't matter what I want to do. You get what I'm saying? I'm very results driven. I'm not saying you can't run. I'm not saying you can't compete, but be honest with yourself. If Dave Smith or somebody runs as a libertarian, I think he's a good guy, but if he gets 5% of the vote and Republicans lose 5% of the vote, you saying you're going to run and doing a whole scene like you're going to be president doesn't actually matter. What matters is now, Biden got elected because you took 5% away from the Republicans. And I'm not saying that means you can't run. I'm not saying you shouldn't compete. I'm not blaming people. I'm just being realistic. I could probably run as a libertarian something, but if I'm going to lose, why role play? There's a lot of role playing, not just in the Libertarian Party, But in the Republican Party, there's Republicans that run in Democrat counties. They lose by 40 points every time. They know they're going to lose. They're aware that they can't win, but they keep doing it for the money, for the attention, for the audience. And it's just this constant system of, well, I don't care. I'll lose forever because I'm making money. I get on stages. I go on Fox News. Everybody likes me. I have purpose in my life now. So it's like professional losers. So I like libertarians. I think in some ways they're better than Republicans, but if you say you're going to run for president, you better really strategize how to win. Because if I'm going to run for president, I'm not going to get 2% of the vote, or else I'm not going to run. I'm not going to get 5% of the vote, or else I'm not going to run. Because if I'm only getting 5% of the vote and I take 5% of the vote away from Republicans, I'm really just helping Democrats. Like, that's, you don't want to think that way, but it's strategically true. You know, if I say I'm playing a basketball game and I get blown out, it doesn't matter what my plans were. I got blown out. So I think, you know, I think another party would be awesome, but it's got to be well funded, well thought out, and you got to have a strategy to success. You can't just role play. And this is what I've seen politicians, everybody's role playing. It's like, you know, Anomaly, are you voting for this person for governor? They're only going to get less than 1% of the vote. No, they're not. They're going to get 30%. No, they're going to get 1%. Guess how much they got? Less than 1%. I was right. I'm not trying to be a dick, but I'm not stupid. I know how elections work, money works, campaign, how good your campaign is, how much you got out there. At the end of the day, you know, if you want to run for office, you got to figure out the game, how to get in people's mailboxes, how to, you know, raise enough money to, you know, actually win. So I feel like I'm such a competitive person that you can't fool me with like, oh, this person's a really good person. Awesome. That's great. Are they do they have a chance? I'm not saying I'm going to vote for someone crappy, but, you know, don't vote for Larry Elder, Anomaly, vote for Anthony Trimino. It's like, okay, is he even going to cross 3%? You know, I'm not trying to be rude. He's a nice guy, but at the same time, you know, I already knew Larry was going to get 20 to 30% of the vote. You know, that's just obvious. So it's like, we can pretend, you know, I can pretend. I don't mind playing make-believe. I can pretend that, you know, another candidate, it really has a shot. But at the end of the day, the truth matters. If I run for office, don't role play. Don't lie to me. Don't tell me that I'm going to get 40% of the vote if I'm not, you know. Let me know, bro, you're only going to get 1% of the vote. So either step your campaign up, get more money, figure out what you're doing, or go away. You know, I'm not trying to be rude, but it's like, you know, that's how I feel about libertarians and third parties. I'm not saying not to do it. I'm not saying not to try, but strategically challenged. So right now, I think Thomas Massie's doing it right. He runs as a Republican. He serves in the Congress. He gets on television and he gets to vote. He didn't run as a libertarian, but he's a libertarian. It's like, it, you know, strategically, I think it makes more sense to change the Republican Party than it does to role play Fantasyland and just get blown out in an election and elect more Democrats. You can, you know, people will cry about this take and say, oh my gosh, Anomaly doesn't get it. He's part of the two-party system. Okay, go play Fantasyland. Go run, go lose, go take away votes, go do nothing. That's fine. I don't care. In my opinion, libertarians should focus on local elections, things that they can win, getting into student council seats and mayor positions, you know, and local seats before they just say, oh, I'm going to go. Okay, see ya. That's my take. Not going to be popular, but it's the truth. I don't care. I've had 20 people, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. They're really going to win. No, they're not. Okay, come talk to me in 3 months. We'll see who is right. I'm not being pessimistic. I'm just being realistic. Someone said, I'm going to vote for DeSantis. I tell you that. DeSantis is blowing away Trump and all these other Republicans with his, you know, instead of just talking and acting like a goofball, he actually does things. It's crazy for Republicans. They're used to people just blabbering and doing nothing. So, you know, DeSantis is actually like, he's not like going for media thing and he doesn't care what the media, he's just like, okay, I'll send you to Martha's Vineyard. Okay, I'll pass this bill. He's executing. Not everything he did was right, but I definitely prefer DeSantis more than Trump at this point. I'd rather roll the dice on him, but we'll see. Someone said Bernie bros are the laziest little fairies. I don't know why that was so funny. I think the word fairies is just a funny word. Someone said DeSantis is anti-Second Amendment, so is Trump. I don't know. I've never heard that, but I think all the flaws that DeSantis has are flaws that he shares with Trump. Like, you know, the speech laws he passes, I don't agree with. I will never stop talking about them. But it's not like Trump does anything differently. So I think all the flaws DeSantis has are mutually shared with Donald Trump. But I think the pros of DeSantis at this point seem to outweigh Trump's pros. But I don't know. We'll see. Only time will tell. Someone said DeSantis made BDS illegal at colleges. I talk about this stuff all the time, the speech laws. So I don't agree with it. I'm just saying, you know, I would prefer him more than Trump. But we'll see. Time will tell. People will decide. With Republicans, though, I think as long as people confront their party, and maybe, you know, maybe this is not right, but maybe this is why I kind of take jabs at Crowder and stuff. You know, it's not out of jealousy or hate or anything. I don't even really watch his show, but at a certain point, I noticed a few things in the Republican Party. Like, say, Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was getting questioned by like Nick Fuentes supporters in 2019 about speech laws, about demographics, some things that Charlie Kirk didn't want to talk about, right? Charlie Kirk cried. I know, you know, they were calling him anti-Semitic, blah, blah. They were throwing out all these things because they didn't want to answer to right-wingers. But if you fast forward 2 years, Charlie Kirk pretty much turned into them. All these stances that he didn't want to talk about then, now all of a sudden he adopts them because people challenged him. You know, Donald Trump, he talked about the vaccine way more. He still likes it. He just doesn't talk about it because he doesn't want his supporters to know who he really is. Because if people find out who Trump is, they won't like him. So he's got to, you know, not talk about the vaccine. But the point I'm getting to is when people started booing Donald Trump, that was a sign that, oh, maybe I should rethink what I'm doing. So maybe that's why I'm booing a little bit. It's not out of hate or jealousy or anything. It's just like, I'm trying, like, these people are just taking up space, not doing anything, acting pissed off every 3 months, but never getting to the core of anything. So maybe if people start challenging them a little, maybe we can actually accomplish something as a party. That's my thought when it comes to DeSantis' speech laws or Donald Trump's shortcomings. I don't think, I'm not someone who says, hey, don't talk about the BDS laws because Ron DeSantis is my favorite person. He's one of the better politicians now, but you should question him on it. You know, if you want to talk about these laws, you should. I would never say, don't do it because I like Ron DeSantis. No, he's a politician. He's your representative. Ask him these questions, challenge him, and try to get him to admit what he's doing or change it. That's great. So, you know, I find that in the Republican Party, a lot of people are saying, let's go really hard on the rhinos, but let's baby Donald Trump and let's baby Ron DeSantis. I don't think that's the right strategy. I've said it a bunch, so that's why I like to challenge some bigger people because they need to be challenged. You know, there needs to be somewhat of, I mean, Crowder, I don't think he really has that much power or leeway. I just think it's funny, you know, that he dresses up all the time. Like, it's just like a funny joke for me to make, but maybe it's not so funny. Maybe it's rude. Am I wrong though? I don't know. At what point, like, where does the line, let's ask in the comment section without being rude or disrespectful. When does the line cross? How many times as a man with an audience of younger men, at what point does it cross the threshold of, okay, it's a joke, it's a bit, it's a skit. At what point do you turn into the cross-dresser in front of, you know, kids that the protruding nipple lady is? Like, at what, you know, where does the threshold get crossed where you just become this? It kind of happened with Lady MAGA, right? Lady MAGA is a cross-dressing Trump supporter. And a lot of people like Bryson Gray and a lot of conservatives were saying, don't let Lady MAGA come to events because she's normalizing cross-dressing to our audience, you know, and that was a huge debate in the MAGA right wing where it's like, you know, I don't know if I've met in person or maybe like online. I believe Lady MAGA's been nice to me and been like, Anomaly, I like your stuff, you know? So as a person, I'm like, I appreciate people who appreciate me. But on another hand, I also get what Bryson Gray is saying where it's like, yeah, you know, at a certain point, I know you're a Trump supporting crossdresser and that's so nice. But at what point, like, what are you doing? If you're going to events with younger kids, like, I don't know. I don't know. You know, at what point is that not like Caitlyn Jenner? You know, on one hand, Caitlyn Jenner, very nice person, right? Very nice, very funny, very smart. You listen on podcasts. But then it's like, on what point are you normalizing what the right is trying to fight? At what point is it a slippery slope? Someone said hating on Crowder out of jealousy. I could not possibly be less jealous of that person. No offense. I'm not interested in being him or having anything he has. I'm just saying, at what point, like, if I said I don't like, and this is just a take, I said, I don't think Caitlyn Jenner should be on Fox News because it's normalizing transgenderism in conservative media. If I said that, would I be jealous of Caitlyn Jenner? Do I want to be Caitlyn Jenner? Or is that just my opinion? I mean, you could think what you want. You could call me jealous. It doesn't hurt my feelings, even if you're wrong. But, at what point is, disagreeing with someone or challenging them, does that mean you always want to be them? I don't know. There's people who make that point as well, where it's like, someone said kids aren't watching Crowder. I'm not saying he has like an obligation, but it's like, you don't think there's tens of thousands of like high school, age men watching Crowder? You're out of your mind. But I don't know. These are just questions to ask yourself. You don't have to agree with me, but I do agree with Christian pastors personally that the slippery slope is real. So this is why, in my opinion, psychologically, Republicans always lose, because the left moves the Overton window to 30 steps, and then the Republicans just move over 15 steps and they just become the left. You could make the argument that Fox News is more liberal than CNN used to be 30 years ago, because they're allowing more LGBT stuff to exist on their platform. You could say I agree with that. I have no problem with it, but it's the truth. It's like, what is the Republican Party besides the Democrats of 5 years ago? They stand for nothing. They do nothing. They have no resistance for communism, no resistance for socialism, no answer to the social degeneracy. Matt Walsh has single-handedly done more in 6 months than the Republican Party has done in 20 years, and he's done it with the help of Daily Wire, a business, not even the GOP. So, it's like, at what point, like, where do you put your foot down? You could say I'm hating, but I'm just being funny, kind of trolling. But also, like, yeah, I mean, are we going to pretend like the slippery slope isn't real? What if you only had two options? I know in your head you want the best of both worlds, right? So do I. I want the coolness of liberalism and the freedom, but I also want the safety and security of conservatism. What if the world gets to a point where you can't have everything you want? What if you have to choose one side or the other? There is no middle ground. You either get Drag Queen Story Hour and your kids getting sexualized, or you get a hardline Christian pastor. What if those are the only two ways? And you might say, well, it's not. That we could have a middle ground. Can you, though? Maybe you can, but from my, as much as I want to reject it, because, I like to have fun. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to live in like a boring world, but are we going to pretend like the slippery slope isn't real? The slippery slope is real. It went from, LGBT marriage to LGBT mafia taking over society, sexualizing your kids and calling you a homophobe if you disagree, while they chop off private parts of little kids. That's what's going on. So you could say, well, Anomaly, you're wrong, and maybe I am, but it's like, at the end of the day, the slippery slope is real. So now the question is, where do you draw it back, right? Well, I don't want to take a stance. I don't want to draw it back. Well, that's why Republicans are where they are. That's why you have, everything you have, because Republicans have no game plan. They don't know how to draw the slippery slope backwards, because all they know how to be is adopt the slippery slope. Well, I'm going to do that, but not that. Democrats want to print $10 trillion. That's too much. That's communism. What Donald Trump and Mitch McConnell will do is print $6 trillion, and they'll give money to Big Pharma, but they won't mandate it. So do you want communism with mandates or socialism communism without mandates? Oh, and then I say, what if we didn't do any of that? And well, Anomaly, that's the only two options. Okay, well then we already lost the game, So that's, I guess, where I'm at is, I tend to, if you want to be honest, as nice as I am and compassionate as I am, I don't hate anybody. I don't judge. If you do something that I disagree with, I'm not going to hate you for it, whether it's cross-dressing, this or that. I'm not going to, be like, oh, Steven Crowder needs to go. But it's just like, I do tend to agree with the hardline Christian pastors at this point over people that are just like slippery slope enablers. Like, I think there's probably more evidence to say the way to stop all of this is to stop it at the source, versus just being like, nah, we're going to do it, but it's funny when we do it because, we need to get those people who agree with us. We need cross-dressers on our side and transgenders who support us. And maybe that's right. Maybe that's the right direction. I'm not trying to isolate, allies, but at a certain point, I just feel like the slippery slope is real, and Republicans have no answer for it. So I don't know. Someone said, at the end of the day, it's how you live your life and treat people, because there's no one to judge, or one to judge. Yeah, I don't hate Steven Crowder. I just thought it was funny to make a joke that he was transgender, because he cross-dresses more than anyone I've ever seen in my personal sphere. But I don't follow a lot of people who dress up. I mean, I like Ryan Long. He dresses up a lot. I just feel like Crowder dresses up more. But I don't know. I just thought it was funny to say. So he's a super cowboy bear. That's hilarious. It is what it is. Someone said abortion's a slippery slope. Yeah, and I guess this is what I'm trying to communicate if it hasn't been clear. I know most Republicans and conservatives will say, well, I want it somewhere in the middle. It's like a liberal. Like, they keep voting Democrat, but they're like, I want abortion, but I don't want the crime. Well, unfortunately, I want, a lollipop that's made out of bananas and peanut butter from Argentina, but I don't have one. So, you can't get what you want all the time. It's like, in general, oh, I'm a Democrat, but I don't want the crime in the cities, but I also want the abortion. It's like, you can't have it all nowadays. Either you come to the Christian conservative side and you get a somewhat safer neighborhood, and probably demographics plays into that too, to a certain extent, of what neighborhood you're in, the type of people that are there, and how normalized crime is, regardless of the politics. But, Democrat areas seem to be doing worse. But in general, it's like, right now, it's like, do you understand the battle going on? Because if you understand the battle going on, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm a Democrat and I want my abortions really bad, so I'm going to keep voting Democrat. Well, then you deserve to live in Sodom and Gomorrah. If you're still voting Democrat and you're still on the fence because you want abortion, I don't feel bad for you. Enjoy the crime, enjoy the filth, enjoy the degeneracy, move to Philadelphia, Los Angeles, live in hell. Why not? Live in hell. You want your abortion so bad, that's what comes with it. And on the right wing, I just feel like, in general, there's a lot of like fair weather people, because I get it. Everybody's trying to be compassionate and be like, well, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. And yeah, at the end of the day, certain things don't bother me. What you do in your personal life, dressing up, it doesn't affect me. But at the end of the day, it's like, we don't have a million options right now. So right now, the Republicans lose everything because they have no stance. They have no agenda. They have no morality. They have no slippery slope line that they're drawing. So if you look at most Republicans, they're just Democrats from 5 years ago. So I think in order to actually win, eventually people are going to have to take a stronger stance, because, in my personal life, I think there's a lot of things I want to do, but it's discipline that will make me great. Like, for example, I would love to think that I could just have sex with thousands of women and, never have a kid out of wedlock. Like, that would be fun to think, right? Oh man, it's just fun to have sex. Let's go have sex with everybody, and it's totally fine. But the reality is, it's not fine. It's not healthy. It's not mentally healthy. It's not physically healthy. And eventually, if you keep banging chicks out of wedlock enough times, you will have a kid. So it's like, eventually you have to face the reality. We don't live in a world where God just gives everybody goodies all the time and there's no cost at it. And I'm not saying I'm a perfect person, but I have to come to terms with, it's like, if I don't want a kid, I should probably do this and not do this, because that's the smart decision to do until I'm married. So it's the same thing with the gay stuff, and the same thing with the left wing stuff. Is like, in theory, it's nice to be like, well, I want this, and this, but I don't want. It doesn't work that way. You know what I'm saying? I want abortions, but I also want, crime to be kicked down. Well, that doesn't exist in America anymore, unless you live in a rich liberal neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? Where there's a lot of money and there's not a lot of crime. I mean, everybody wants their cake and want to eat it too, but at a certain point, I think people need to come to terms with, the right wing is not really going to get much at this current stage, because they don't have a real stance. And this is how Democrats win over time. Like, if you would have said 15 years ago, I disagree with gay marriage, that was normal. California voted against gay marriage within the last 20 years. California. This was normal. I'm not saying you have to agree with it. You might be gay, or you might think you're gay, or, you might watch Steven Crowder enough that you turn gay. No, that was a joke. But in general, it's like, at a certain point, that was the normal back then. Whether you think it was right or wrong, it was normal to do that. Now, if you come out as a Christian and say, hey, I'm against gay marriage because although I don't hate you, I think marriage biblically is between a man and a woman, and there's a reason for that, right? There's a systemic reason for that. A man and a woman can have a kid. It's natural. A man and a woman can raise a family. It's natural. A man and a woman is a perfect little, situation to create a family, because then you have the masculine, the feminine, you have the mom, the dad, and it creates this family unit, and that's why God intended marriage to be between a man and a woman. Now, you're excommunicated not just from the Democratic Party, but even from the Republican Party. It's being run by Dave Rubin and Richard Grenell, who will have a conniption if you say they shouldn't get married. Well, it's like, okay, there was a big controversy over Dave Rubin saying, well, why, he's adopting kid. He's just harvesting someone else's kid because his husband is a guy. It's not like he can pump his butt and have a kid. That's not how God works. A man and a woman need to make a kid unless they're going to just make a womb in a guy and implant it like an incubator. It's like you could fight nature all you want, but at the end of the day, you're not going to make a kid with your sex. You're going to have to take it from somebody else, or have someone else have your kid. The point I'm getting to is there was a huge argument over that. And I stayed out of it because honestly, I didn't even think about it before I saw the argument. I never even thought about it. So I'm just like, even though I talk too much in this situation, sometimes I just listen and fall back and listen to everybody else, where I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I never even thought of that. And this was one of those arguments that I just wanted to stay out of and learn and listen. But the point I'm getting to is like, now a Democrat used to be against gay marriage. Now if you're a Republican, you get excommunicated from the Republican Party. But me personally, when I was 19, I supported gay marriage. Why? Because I didn't care. I had no morals. I didn't know anything. I was young. I thought gay people were cool, and it's just like, that's a nice thing to do. But now I would say I'm against it, not because I hate them and not because I don't have friends that are gay. It's just because I get what marriage is now. I didn't understand it. It's between a man and a woman for a reason. A man and a woman make a kid. A guy and a guy have to borrow or steal a kid or birth a kid in a woman. And a woman have to do the same thing. A man and the woman, when they have a kid, they create the perfect family unit. The masculine and the feminine, the mom and the dad, the caretaker and the go-getter. And it's not always that way, but it's a great system. It procreates. It's the whole reason that we keep creating. If everybody was gay, humanity would die in 100 years, So it's like, is that hateful to say? No, that's just reality. So although I think, government-wise, to be honest, I don't care if gay people get married because it's just a scam anyway. Now you're going to owe your husband half the money. You guys divorce. He's taking the kid. You could join the legal hell that Christian and straight people are in. I don't care. I never even cared about it then. It's like, okay, I think biblical marriage is legit, but I think a marriage based off no religion usually fails, and a marriage based off of a government idea, oh, let's just go to Vegas and sign a piece of paper. That's not a marriage, just like I don't think the gay thing, it's like, that's not marriage either. Oh, we like each other and we don't believe in God, but we're going to go just sign a paper. It's not real marriage, it's not like, I'm not just against the gay thing. It's like that straight people are doing fake marriages all over the place. Just money, taxes, and society telling them, if you like each other, sign these paperwork. That's not a marriage either. But if I were to say that, that's unpopular in the Republican Party now. So do we even have a conservative party, or is it just Democrats and Democrat juniors? Because my stance on marriage is not based on hate. It's not based on not talking to my friends who identify as homosexual. It's just based off, I think I get it now. Although I'm not married, I think I get why Christians used to think it was between a man and a woman. Not because they hate you, not because they even care what you do in your bedroom, not because they're trying to infringe on your life, but because at the end of the day, it's a slippery slope. You allow this and all this comes. No, it won't. Yes, it did. Why'd it come then? Okay, why'd the slippery slope happen? If you can't figure it out, then maybe it's going to keep happening until people take a stand somewhere. And I think that, if you can explain it in a non-hateful manner, people that are gay will watch it and be like, oh, I get that. Where it's like, you could call things whatever you want at the end of the day. Like, if you want to get married, sure. I guess then marriage doesn't mean what it used to mean. Okay, now that word's different. Racist, what does that mean? Whatever. Man, what does man mean? Whatever. What's a woman? Ask Matt Walsh. What's a woman? No one wants to say. So it's just another part of the perversion of words. And what I just explained in the last 5-10 minutes, by the way, completely off the top of the dome, this wasn't written or even planned. I just kind of walked you through it. This is more than most Republicans will ever say, because they don't think like that. And the reason they don't think like this, or because they don't think like this, they never accomplish anything, and they just turn into liberals and Democrats from 5 years ago. So it's like, it's saying that anyone could get married, whether you're, straight or not. Sure. I mean, but then if you're Richard Grinnell or Dave Rubin or millions of Republicans that say we believe anyone could get married, then marriage doesn't mean what it used to mean. Okay, that's fine, but then you guys can't get mad at transgenders for, being non-binary. They're doing the same thing you're doing. They're using the word in a different way. That's fine. Let's just redefine everything if that's what it is, but stop pretending like you're conservative or libertarian or, you're fighting the left. No, you're just collecting money and standing in the way, Sure, you can change marriage. Fine, whatever. I don't care. I'll define it by myself if I want to. They want to change what a man is. They want to change what a woman is. They want to change what gender is. They want to change what master bedroom is. How is it any different? It's really not. It's the same psychology going on. It's just Republicans are slightly sneakier about it and more covert, and they've convinced themselves that they're not that. Oh, I'm against the changing of dictionary definitions. I bet you millions of you are fine with marriage being changed. That what that used to mean. Well, yeah, but that's different. Why? Because I want Dave Rubin to get married. Okay, sure, Dave Rubin's a nice guy. I'm sure he seems like he's very, responsible. He's a funny guy. But at the end of the day, it's like, we'll see. We'll see what happens with, the world and the slippery slope. I personally think it would be like, if I'm trying to not sound like a jerk, because I'm not, it's like, if I just said I could get jacked, someone said this rant is crazy. It's crazy accurate. People are trying to have their cake and eat it too. It's like, I can get jacked. How do I get jacked? I have to stop eating certain foods. I have to start eating certain foods. I have to work out more. I have to be disciplined. I have to work my ass off over the course of a year. That's how I would get even more jacked than I already am. It's not what I want, but it's what I need. It's like, oh, well, anomaly, this is crazy. Well, then enjoy the world you live in. You deserve this teacher. You know what I'm saying? It's not what you want, but you need it. You know what I'm saying? It's not like things aren't always what you want it to be. Yeah, I want to find the perfect thing. It's like, yeah, okay, you got to work for it, put in the discipline. It doesn't, everybody's like, oh, I just want America to be this way, but I don't want to have discipline. Well, then you don't deserve it. Well, I don't want drag queen story hour, but I'm fine with marriage being changed. Okay, well then gender's going to change too. Well, I don't want that word changed. Well, once you change one, you change them all. I'm for free speech. Okay, but I'm also for Israeli speech laws. But you can't be for Israeli speech laws if you're for free speech. Oh, but that's anti-Semitic. No, it's not. It's like this is the Republican Party. They want everything, but they have zero discipline in any category. Not in the First Amendment, not in the Second Amendment, not with socialism, not with communism, not with LGBT, not with liberalism. There's no discipline there at all. So it's like, you might want all of that to be true. You might not want the teacher to be like this, but you deserve the teacher to be like this, because if I took the stance of Barack Obama in 2001, I would be excommunicated from Republican events. What Barack Obama believed about marriage in 2001 is a stance that's considered too edgy for most Republican events nowadays. If you're Bryson Gray and you take a stance similar to Barack Obama in 1999, you are now too edgy for the Republican Party. So what is the Republican Party? It's just a open tent for liberals and a closed tent for right-wingers. It's an open tent for drag queen, but a closed tent for a hardline Christian. That's what it is. It's not a full open tent. It's like, you can come and you can come. It's like, no, we'll be more tolerant to left-wing media who hates us than we will be to right-wing dissidents who question us. It's like, I probably got questioned going to a right-wing event more than left-wing media did. I know I did. So it is what it is. That's all I'm saying. You might think what I'm saying is crazy, but that's just how I think in general. Everything is not always what I want it to be. I would love to just party all the time, but if I drank every single day, eventually my liver would screw up, but anomaly, you're crazy. No, that's just how the world works. Everything's not what you want it to be. I wish I could eat freaking chocolate bars every day and look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but that's not reality. So the same thing applies to social issues. The same thing applies to the manipulation of language and changing word dictionaries. The same thing applies to Christianity. The same thing applies to everything. The countries that are still Christian are in Europe, mostly Eastern Europe. Most of the Western world is gay. It's not Christian. You know, it's the liberal gay world order meets Zionism meets pharmaceutical companies, you know, fighting Russia, China, and Iran or something. Cool story. But in general, there's a reason that most Christian countries aren't Christian anymore. It's because there's no discipline at all. That's just the reality of it. Like I wish it wasn't that way. You know what I'm saying? I would love to do a lot of things and get better results, but unfortunately, it's just not true. If I would have vacationed every spring break in my 20s, I wouldn't be here. I worked my ass off and I skipped vacation and put in the work. It was inconvenient. I would have liked a vacation, but you know, I had to make things happen if I wanted to be successful. So it's the same thing with society. It's the same thing with culture. I'm not saying to be mean about it or hate people, but at a certain point, if you as a Christian and a conservative are okay with a dictionary change on a definition, once you change one word, you could change 1,000 words. You want to pass a speech law for Israel because, you know, Trump told you that that's fighting anti-Semitism. You don't fight anti-Semitism with speech laws. That doesn't even make sense. You know, it's like Jewish people are the least safe in America in inner cities where they're getting attacked by not right-wingers. Let's just put it that way. So it's not, a speech law is not going to save you if you're Jewish in this country. You know, the safest you could be is not in a major city where the crime is high. That's the reality of the biggest threat in your life and everybody's life. But, you know, it's like, you can't be pro free speech and pass a speech law. You can't be against changing dictionary definitions if you're fine with one. You can't cry about the liberalization of America if as a Christian or conservative you want to make no sort of stand or at least weigh out the arguments. Like with the Dave Rubin thing, I watched people attack from both sides. Mark Dice said to Dave Rubin, you know, you harvested those kids or something, or you stole them, you and your husband didn't have them. Mark Dice, as a Christian conservative, is very against gay people adopting. He thinks it's weird and creepy and should be illegal. And then I saw a lot of people come to the defense of Dave Rubin and say, leave Dave alone. He's our gay guy. You know what I'm saying? He's the right-wing gay guy, and he you know, it's fine when he does it. Who cares if he adopts somebody? And it's like, someone said, are you okay with him adopting? To be honest, this is a stance I sit out, not because I'm playing the fence, but it's something that I never thought about before it came up a couple weeks ago. And I can't say I have a strong enough stance to really figure it out. I think there's value sometimes in learning and listening, not to play the fence, but I'm not an expert at everything. This is not something I fully studied and researched. So when I saw the argument, to be honest, I was just fascinating. I didn't hate the fact that Mark Dice said that. I kind of enjoyed it. I didn't hate the fact that Cernovich was defending Dave Rubin. I thought it was a nice thing to do as a friend. So, you know, I had people on both sides of the aisle saying both, and I guess I'm trying to think about it. I never thought about it before, like a couple weeks ago or whenever it happened. So, to be honest, I don't know. I definitely think it's healthier for kids to grow up with a man and a woman, but at the same time, who are your parents? How good did they raise you? What are the options? Is that person going to sit in an orphanage for 30 years by themselves and Dave Rubin's going to give them a better life? I mean, I don't know. I could see it going both ways, but I think Mark Dice has every right to say that and put that in the conversation, and Cernovich has every right to defend him. And I'm not playing the fence. If I had a strong stance, I would tell you, but it's like in my head, I don't know. It's like, where was that person going to be without Dave Rubin and his husband, adopting him? I mean, I guess one thing that I'm for sure certain about is Mark Dice should be able to say that, and Bryson Gray should be able to say that. When people try to shut them down for having a view that they consider too Christian or too conservative, I can't stand that. That's when I start to rail against these conservatives, because I'm like, you don't have to like it or agree with it, but how quickly they try to censor everybody who says something like that. I'm like, oh, so you guys are just gatekeeping the slippery slope. It's fine that you want to defend Dave Rubin, but when people are like, oh, this is terrible, this is you can't say that, it's like, I don't know. I think I think that these conversations need to happen. And I guess here's what I also want to say is these conversations don't happen very often because the Republican Party tries to act like everybody's further left than they are. If you came out right now as a right winger and you went as hard as Bryson Gray does against the homosexuality stuff, you wouldn't lose support in the Hispanic community. Most of the world is further right on these issues than America is. On abortion, America is one of the most left-wing. On homosexuality, the Western world, like, you think people in Russia feel the same way we feel, or Mexico, or South America, or Africa? Dude, we're a joke to them. So it's like the right-wingers, they always let the left-wingers reframe the conversation, and then they say, oh, you can't feel that way. Most of the world still feels that way. So how come we can't feel that way in America if Africa can feel that way, and Mexico can feel that way, and Saudi Arabia can feel that way, and Qatar can feel that way, and Russia can feel that way, and Eastern Europe can feel that way, but right-wingers in America can't feel that way because Rick Grinnell doesn't want to hear it, because Trump hired him or something? Like, that's where I kind of cross the line. You don't have to agree with me, but this is how, I'm just trying to say psychologically, this is how the left wins. They reframe reality, they pump it in everyone's heads, and then the Republicans cuck and act like the opinion that everybody believed 10 years ago is too radical to even have in the Republican Party. I mean, what else is controlled opposition? You can't even agree with Barack Obama 20 years ago, or else you're deemed as a extremist to the right wing. Meanwhile, you go to Africa, most people agree with you. Mexico, most people agree with you. You don't have to feel that way. I don't even care if you feel that way. You get what I'm saying? I'm not trying to shove my opinions down people's throats. I'm just saying I will, ideologically fight for our right to say stuff like that and our right to feel that way, because if you don't have the right and you don't even have the lane to say that in your party, then that's when you lose. That's when the slippery slope, the road is paved and there's no competition for the left-wing narrative. They got the narrative and the right-wing are placekeepers. They'll fight on some domestic issues, but when it comes to the core of the culture and the core of the slippery slope, you can guarantee that 8 out of 10 or 9 out of 10 Republicans will not even touch it. You know what I'm saying? It's too far. They don't want to do it. So I don't know the right answer to everything. I'm not socially trying to control everybody, but I for damn sure know how they're winning, and it's through that slippery slope. So someone said drinking responsibly is so much better, no consequences. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about drinking. Someone said settle down, anomaly, you don't have to apologize too much. You're honest, you have no reason to apologize. Well, I'm not really apologizing, but I do like to explain myself, because I think to be an effective communicator, you want people to know where you're coming from and you want people to feel it. I think, I can't speak for sure, but I've watched other platforms that are big. Some people I find very authentic, and I'm like, oh, I like that person. Everybody likes something else. And then there's other people that are big that I'm like, oh, they're not really that authentic. I don't trust them. So I try to be trustworthy and just be like, this is how I feel. I'm not just going to make a brash statement and not explain myself. It's not because I'm sorry. It's just because I want people to know where I'm coming from. And if they understand where I'm coming from, it's easier to agree with me than having an outlandish statement said or perceived as outlandish, but people don't even know why you said it. You can't explain it. So it's like, well, that just seemed rude. I'm not really apologizing. It's more just like, this is why I feel that way. And, I do think that slippery slopes are real. Everything in moderation. I think there's certain ways to, have a little fun, but not go the full distance on everything. But at the same time, I am getting, the older I get, the more I feel like, sometimes you just gotta stop something, and that's the only way to stop it. But all right, one more. Someone said we're having a side conversation. That's cool. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Thank you, God's child. Said shalom, anomaly, tell him like it is. Appreciate you. Let me know what you guys think. But I didn't mean to even start this conversation, but I'm not upset that I did. I think it's an interesting one, and I guess I've been kind of tapped out of mainstream culture recently, because I feel like, and I've said this a bunch, it's all just this thing like, oh, we're going to fight them and we're going to fight them and I'm going to say this and I'm going to say this and this is generic and that's generic. But then I'm like, okay, interesting. But like, when are we going to get to things that matter? When are we going to crush through the surface? And that's, what I think we did in this conversation. It's something that people don't have. And, like on the gay marriage and Dave Rubin adopting things, it's almost like, let's never do that again. That was too much. And it's like, it's rough. I know it's not fun for certain people when it involves them, but it is a philosophical conversation where it's like, if we're going to return to normalcy and, teachers aren't going to just wear big bazungas in front of your children anymore, where do we draw the line and how do we get to that destination? Because say what you want, we're not really getting there. I mean, there's been a little progress recently with parents paying attention and the Matt Walsh stuff, but for the most part, over the last 30 years, you could say it's going in the wrong direction, right? If you're conservative, it's like, well, this is not what we wanted. We didn't want lockdowns and like kid hormones. Like that's for sure not what everybody wanted 10 years ago. So outside of what I'm saying seeming so crazy to some people, you got to admit that things are not going in the right direction. So I think conversations like this, although they may not be popular, it's like, I think it's necessary to get back in the right direction, whether I'm right or wrong, about Crowder or Dave Rubin's, it's like, at least it's time to start thinking about it a little bit, because in general, like, we're not going in the right direction. We're certainly not winning in the last 20 years. And, things are getting weirder and weirder to the point where I don't even know what's parody or real anymore. I just assumed this big bazunga lady was like that has to be a joke. Oh no, it's real. Of course it's real. Why would I think it's a joke? Like, this life is this dumb. So we're not going in the right direction. How do we? Gotta talk about stuff, because the current Republican platform isn't working. And this is not a jab at Trump himself, but the Trump administration 4 years did not make America great again. In fact, it got worse, more lockdown, vaccine sales. I'm not saying it's his fault, but it didn't go in the right direction. I mean, you're out of your mind if you're like, oh, all we need is 4 more years of Trump and it's really going to turn around. Maybe it'll be better than Biden, I'm sure, but you think, like, what evidence do you have from the 4 years of Trump, socially, economic, like, what went in the right direction? Yeah, he did a better job on border security, but like, even his 4 years ended in lockdowns and further degeneracy. So even his campaign wasn't going in the right direction. This idea that just following him is going to send it in the right direction, it's not true. There's no evidence to really back that. So we have to have a little deeper conversations about it, not because it's Trump's fault, but because I don't think we're going where you think we're going, unless enough people get this consciousness of like, okay, I never thought of it that way. Like the Rubin thing. I never even, to be honest, I got a lot of stuff going on. I don't just sit and think about gay marriage all the time. In fact, I never do. So when that whole came up about the adoption thing, I never even thought about it before that. That's why I didn't really speak on it, because I like to know what I'm talking about. And I've got wise enough to learn that I don't have to say everything unless I know what I'm talking about or making a joke. And I'm like, that's fascinating. So, just something to think about. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. And have a beautiful day. Thanks for hanging out, and thanks for being here on the live podcast.